The college football experience, Kentucky Wildcats 2024 season preview episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times the amount of your entry with their brand new Pick 8. Sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. And yes, they do have college football. We've been playing it for years. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. That's RITHMM. Yes, claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm.
This is Mike Leach, head football coach at Mississippi State, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Kentucky Wildcats 2024 season preview, team preview, all that good stuff. We're rolling along as we preview all 134 college football teams with a solo podcast. We're dedicating an hour, like we do every year, to each and every team in the land. Only this year there is 134 because Kennesaw State is jumping to the FBS. So yes, folks, you know, maybe you want to know about the rival Louisville Cardinals. All right, know what those a-holes are doing over there. Well, you got to listen to it. It's coming out. All right, but we're talking about Big Blue Nation here, and it's a good time to be a Kentucky fan. Hell, you had a 10-win season not that long ago. Could that mean you get to the 12-team playoff? Brand new day and age in college football. I think it's going to be one of the most interesting years ever in college football in my lifetime. It jumps off page to me as coming into the season, potentially the most interesting. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, my name is Colby Swiggin, Database Dan, a.k.a. Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I'm probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
Woo! Yeah,
I like
haven't had the morning coffee yet.
I like the dramatic silence there. It built up.
Gotta do it. You gotta do it. And look, you know who's been celebrating like Pick Dundee? I think it's Mark Stoops, even though he was almost at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
They put that out there that he did, and then there was a backlash at A&M. So then he had already told the team at Kentucky, I heard. But
man, almost lost both of their coaches, football and basketball.
He won the argument with Calipari. Calipari, you know, they had a feud. Because Calipari was saying, we're still a basketball school. And he said, no, we've changed it. Well, bye-bye. Calipari left on his own will after the fans were done with his ass. Sent him seaworthy down to Arkansas. And Mark Pope's the man. Check out the College Basketball Experience for more on that podcast, that I host as well. I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for former JMU Duke defensive back, the burrito eating, sideline kiss stealing, wheeling and dealing, Patty C in the place to be.
Hi-oh, up.
Let's get it going. Here. Little Kentucky Wildcat. Look, Mike Leach on the intro, former Kentucky OC. Tim Couch, top pick in the draft. DeAndre Woodson. They've been rolling along. Last year was Devin Leary.
Yeah, despite his 56% completion percentage, it still managed to get drafted in the 6th round by the Ravens. So, yeah, I mean, they are cranking out some draft picks there in Kentucky these days.
Yeah, I never understood and this Kentucky fans probably going to get mad at this, but why would you leave NC State to become the quarterback at Kentucky? NC State's got like a rich history of quarterbacks, obviously Russell Wilson, Philip Rivers, Eric Kramer, if you go back far enough. What's his name?
Well,
the
Will
brother.
Levis. Yeah, I mean, definitely.
What's his name? The quarterback, Glennon, Sean Glennon's brother,
yeah,
Mike
Sean
Glennon.
Glennon,
Yeah. They've had a lot of quarterbacks. Ryan Finley. They've had a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. So
yeah. Oh, it's the ACC in general is pretty rich in terms of their history of producing quarterbacks, and NC State definitely one of those teams. So it does make you question it. Now, what had happened with the coaching situation there that might have led to that at NC State?
I'm just assuming that the real story was that Kentucky offered more money. Dave Doran's still the head coach at NC State. He's been there for a while.
That's right.
Now they did lose their OC. Maybe that was it.
Coordinators.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But if anything, they went to Robert and I. Got a pretty good track record.
Yeah. Cranked out some explosive offenses that the quarterbacks. But if you can make Brennan Armstrong look, phenomenal at times, then you're a great offensive coordinator. Or so quarterback friendly one at least.
So where are you at with these Kentucky Wildcats? So I'm curious. We're going to pull up and I guess we should dive into it. And I encourage you to watch this on YouTube, youtube.com/the college experience, because we have all these graphics. It's great, on the audio side too. But, where are you at with Mark Stoops? I'm curious because he's done a great job in one way. Like Kentucky is not what they once were. But now you're in this
horrible.
Yeah, but now you're in this day and age where there is no more SEC East. You still have the 8-game SEC schedule at least right now to help you out, because I have some stats for that in a second. But you can't say he's doing a bad job, but where are you at with it? Where are you at with him as a head coach?
I mean, I guess it requires a little bit of, deeper dive into the history of the program to kind of gauge where the program in general has, risen or fallen over the years. I mean, I think that under Rich Brooks, would they go bowling like 4 years in a row?
He was the guy to really start it to me. And then
Joker Phillips was pretty bad for 3 years. I mean, I guess Joker Phillips went bowling the first year, and then by the time he was done 2-10, Stoops stepped in 2-10 in the first year, but then hasn't had less than 5 wins for how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 straight years with at least 5 wins. And was it 8 straight bowling seasons now? That's pretty darn impressive for Kentucky.
But he's figured out the formula. And look, let's just go to it. All right.
Yeah.
Because to me, the formula is, well, first off, he's 73-65 in 11 years, but he's 34-56 in SEC play. And I think that's the concerning thing. Now, the thing that jumps out to me, those are his records against, all the teams there. Not all of them, but a lot of them. 0-11 against Georgia, 0-4 against Bama, 0-3 against Ole Miss, but he is 7-4 against South Carolina. All right. I think he's also winless against like A&M and Auburn. But 4-7 against Florida, but I want to talk about that in a second. 2-9 against Tennessee, 5-6 against Mississippi State, 7-4 against Missouri. So South Carolina, Missouri, I think are the things that are really helping him. 7-3 against Vandy. Actually, that one not as much. 0-1 against Western Kentucky. He hasn't put him back on the schedule since they beat him his first year, which that game needs to happen, by the way. And then 6-4 against Louisville. That is his best thing, I think.
Yeah,
that he's got going for him. Yeah,
definitely.
Governor's Cup. But I mean, it's just interesting to me that you're 34-56 in SEC play, and people say you're awesome. You're doing a great job. I
mean, I think you have to take into consideration that his first 3 years in SEC play, he was 4-22. So. Well, he has closed that gap considerably. He's close to 500 since
But he was 3-5 last year in the SEC, and he was 3-5 the year before in the SEC. And those 3 wins are normally Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and for some reason they have had Missouri's number or Florida's number of late. Yeah. That to me is another one thing. You see 4-7 against Florida. They lost to Florida for 30 straight years from 87 to whatever was it, 17, and they have won 4 of 6, and they have 3 of those 4 have been double-digit wins, and Florida only has 2 double-digit wins against Kentucky, I think, in the last 10 years. So Kentucky's kind of changed the narrative in that. That might be his best feather in his cap to me.
Right,
is the way they play Florida.
Yeah, I don't know which one from a national standpoint, that's probably more impressive than having Louisville's number to a 6-4 record against Louisville, but maybe to Big Blue Nation, 6-4 against Louisville is more important. I don't know. I'm sure they like beating Florida.
Yeah. But I will say this: he is just 7-17 against the SEC West, and 5 of those 7 wins are against Mississippi State.
Yeah.
The reason why I say this is because there's no more SEC East, and you get the SEC West a lot more on the schedule, and there's a thing called Oklahoma and Texas joining. That's where I wonder, why the fuck did Kentucky vote yes on bringing in Oklahoma and Texas?
I'm gonna guess the gazillion dollars that
they're already making gazillions right now.
Well, now they're even more rich.
I understand
that. The Fugitive, they're already rich. She was even richer. That's what it is.
But to me, like, if you don't allow, and look, it's still majority. You know what I mean? Like, majority of the votes. But to me, if you don't allow them, your chances of going to this 12-team playoff are great. But now you're allowing them.
I don't know that they were great.
Not great, but they had a 10-win season a couple years ago. That's my point. Yes.
Yeah. Now it seems impossible. I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know why some of these teams voted yes on it. It's like, and Kentucky, he's done a great job getting it to this point. You wonder, with the SEC money that's already coming in from the SEC Networks deal back in like 2010, long term, could this thing really get, it seems like he really had.
It's easy to see a tide turn.
I don't know. It's just a good question to ask to me anyway.
There is speculation that in a couple of years, the playoff will expand from 12 to 14 or 16. So does that put them in that conversation
a little more?
Again?
I'll tell you this: we did the LSU preview yesterday, and it's going to expand really fast because I think they have a system that is stupid right now. Surprise! College football's got a dumb system, but these conferences are too large, and the schedule discrepancies from team to team. It's going to make it well, and then you're going to have crazy tiebreakers. And since there's 18 team conferences, you're not going to have a head-to-head to go on, right? Yeah. And like me and NC Nick were doing the exercise yesterday on the LSU preview, and I'm like, LSU schedule's great. And I was like, what's crazy is if Georgia loses, or the loser of that Georgia Texas game, I don't think it's going to make the SEC championship game because there's too many other tough spots. Schedules. Yeah, exactly. And there's other schedules like Missouri's and Ole Miss and A&M's that I think are very, very favorable this year. And then it's going to create this thing where, like last year, we were going through the LSU was 9-3, and I know this, we're talking about Kentucky here, but I think this might pertain to them in the future. LSU went 9-3 last year, but we went through and basically realized even with a 12-team playoff, they wouldn't have been in last year, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you'd sit there and say they had the same regular season record as a couple other teams. They had the tiebreaker head-to-head matchup win against Missouri, but they did not have it against Ole Miss, and that was in a 14-team conference. Now you have a 16-team conference. It's some fans, and to me, or like Louisville. You saw Louisville. In the ACC
there are going to be examples where it is glaringly obvious that one team has a better record simply because of the schedule
Oklahoma State last year. I'm sorry, Kansas State. Kansas State to me was a much better team than Oklahoma State. South Alabama went into Oklahoma State and beat them by like 20 last year. I don't believe Louisville was the second best team in the ACC, but they played for the championship game. And now we're putting an auto bid on that conference game, not only an auto bid, but a bye week. So you are potentially, they have it's just it's going to cause a lot. Like they're going to expand right away, I believe, because some fan base like Texas is going to get screwed over.
Yeah, and then they're going to raise hell.
Yes, and so I do think we're on the cusp of that. If that happens, if we go to 16 or 20 or something, then I believe Kentucky, maybe
is a fringe playoff team at that point. But yeah, I agree with you. At 12 right now, with Oklahoma and Texas now in the conference, a great year is probably 3 losses, for Kentucky, and that's fringe 12 team playoff. If they get really lucky. Maybe they pop in there, but I'd say it's pretty unlikely at this point.
One of the smart things Stoops has done is the non-con. I mean, you get the Governor's Cup every year, but they normally schedule an FCS and a couple shitty MAC schools.
Yeah,
every year,
Central,
every year, and that's how he's got that 73-65 record, where you're still 34-56 in the SEC play, including 6-10 in your last 2 years. So, let's jump into this though, because. The team, look, they lost some guys. You mentioned this. Kentucky Stoops has got this program rolling along where they're getting guys drafted. Devin Leary off to the NFL draft. Ray Davis off to the NFL draft. Those are the 2 offensive players. On the defensive side of the ball, Trevin Wallace, NFL draft at the linebacker spot, and same with Andrew Phillips in the secondary. Couple other substantial losses: tight end Brandon Bates, wide receiver Tavion Robinson, offensive lineman Jeremy Flax. I believe those are free agent signings into the NFL after not being drafted. But either way, that's funny. That says NFL draft of graduation. I meant or graduation. I fucked that up. Yeah, I mean, look, that's getting more guys drafted than they did, say, 20 years ago. So clearly this thing is going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking back at it right now. Occasionally they'd have 3 or 4 guys picked, but most years 1 or 2 for a long time. And now, it's been, 4 years in a row that they've cranked out at least 4 draft picks. Like he's got that program on a different level now.
Now I wonder though, Devin Leary he should count as an NC State guy. Ray Davis, maybe, he was a Vanderbilt transfer too, and Tavion Robinson, Virginia Tech, right? So you definitely had, they're utilizing the portal well.
Well, they're playing for Kentucky in their final year, and yeah, they're utilizing the portal, and that's the talent that's on their roster, the year prior to them going pro. So I would say they're Kentucky guys if they end up with them. Maybe they're not developing, but I think Stoops does a great job of development, and that's kind of the style of coach he is, in my opinion.
On the defensive side of the ball, offense, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Folks, we're going to talk about the Kentucky offense, defense, special teams, what they brought in the transfer portal that go game by game on the schedule. Talk about the win total, the SEC odds. But before we do all that, I want to tell you are listening to the College Football Experience, and we are part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And make sure to check out our new daily podcast dedicated to giving out underdog picks. The Daily Dog. Yes, new 10-minute episodes dropping Monday through Friday. The Daily Dog, wherever you get your podcast. Also, the Circa announced they're giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes for Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. Sign up in Vegas and play from anywhere with footballcontestproxy.com. Promo code SGP to get $50 off. That's footballcontestproxy.com. Promo code SGP to get $50 off. All right, let's continue this journey into the Kentucky Wildcats. Patty C, a year ago, when it comes to offense, Kentucky was 109th in scoring per game out of 133 teams. They were a bottom 15 team in scoring the ball on offense. That's still charted for 8th best though within the SEC, which is almost middle of the pack, surprisingly.
Yeah,
maybe.
Not a great look for the SEC there.
I think that just means there's some good defenses there. They were 119th in yards, 339.5 yards per game. That was 11th best in the SEC out of 14 teams. They were 125th in passing. Devin Leary, so that was attractive to him. He said, "I'm going to go over there and B, bottom 8 in passing the ball. 211.6 yards per game. That was 11th best in the SEC. They were 52nd in rushing at 127.8 yards per game. That was 12th best in the SEC. Do any of these numbers surprise you?
Not particularly. They haven't ever really. I mean, Levis, I guess, was pretty darn good there, but still, I don't know that he was cranking out insane numbers. What did Levis produce? Is 2,400 passing yards his final year there, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. It's not exactly Heisman numbers. When you play in that pro style kind of pound the ball, defense first system that Stoops has, then your quarterbacks aren't, and your running backs do produce. Ray Davis, like you said, another guy that bounced around, went to 2 schools before finally coming to Kentucky. What did he put up, like 1,100 rushing yards? So
it was good.
That's impressive. Yeah. It's thousands.
And they keep doing this thing, whether it's Levis, whether it's Leary, now it's they went out to get Brock Vandergriff. They go for the transfer quarterbacks. They don't produce within. You know what I mean?
Well, now they're going for transfer running backs too, because this I don't know how to pronounce his name. Traynum, Diamante,
yeah, from Ohio State, right?
Yeah, via Arizona State. I mean, these guys are just bouncing all over the place. So, but hey, if it's working, if you can punch up your talent level in your offense overnight, might as well.
Yeah, and the question is the offense working when you're 119th? I don't know, but you're winning games. You got 5 starters back on the offensive side of the ball, led by Dane, who I feel like has been in college 20 years at the wideout spot. Same with Barion Brown at the wideout spot. 3 of 5 back on the O-line. Marquise Cox, Eli Cox. A lot of Cox on this offensive line, Patty. So you know you got to be a fan of that. Also, Jaeger Burton is the right guard there. If you're in Kentucky, I feel like you're always doing Jaeger bombs. Only 5 starters back on a shaky offense. A little bit of red flag there. They're really counting on this portal, but should we be concerned a little bit?
I guess that kind of depends on what you think of Vandergriff, and reports are that this guy obviously was a 5-star, I believe a coach's son. That makes you think, okay, this guy can at least read a defense and probably has a pretty live arm, but also supposedly a real running threat, to get it done with his legs, not just like when the pocket breaks down, but some design runs. So I think, I mean, if he gets the offense going to where they wanted Leary to get it, then this offense could finally go. And that's not the staple of this team. They're still a defensive first team, like we said. But if the offense is even like, average, because what were they, like 100th overall? You said 109th scoring. If they're even average in the 50s
119th.
or 60s, 119th. Wow. Then I mean, an average offense with the solid defense that they've had, all of a sudden Kentucky starts winning some close games and they have a pretty good season on their hands.
Yeah, Bush Hamden running the offense here. Offensive side of the ball, certainly the one that I feel shaky about. Now, in the portal, they did lose quarterback Deuce Hogan in New Mexico State, and the Aggies, Kaya Sharon to Sharon, I guess, to UT Martin. The Skyhawks. Destin Wade went over to Colorado to back up Shedeur Sanders. Shane Ham also hit the portal as well. Running back spot, Jatan McClain, portal. Lavelle Wright goes to Austin Peay. Shamar Porter heading to UConn, the Huskies after their 2020 national championship. Ardell Banks heading to Kent State. DeKel Crowdus heading to the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. And then what the hell is this? Isaiah Cummings at the tight end spot transfers to Louisville.
That's not right.
There's 132 schools you can go to me. Maybe even 133. But I what are you doing, you piece of absolute shit? Anyway, offensive tackle Grant Bingham also in the portal, or Bingham in the portal. Kicker Jackson Smith also heads to Western Kentucky. None of those guys. I mean, I guess I don't really think any of those were super substantial to me. Maybe the Louisville one because they're on the schedule.
Yeah. I mean, let me see from a quarterback standpoint if any of those dudes got significant burn last year. It doesn't look like it. Sharon had a total of 4 attempts, and he was the only other guy on the roster that threw the ball. So losing 4 quarterbacks in the portal, you would think would seriously hurt depth. But
and losing Leary, you're just like, hey, we're out 5 quarterbacks then. But no.
Yeah, apparently they only lost outside of Leary 4 passing attempts. So you bring in Vandergriff, yeah. Despite losing 5 quarterbacks, you've upgraded your quarterback room, and other guys, McLean and Wright. We'll see if they've had much production there. McLean was good for 138 yards. Wright doesn't look like he produced any stats. So, and yeah, not much lost in the backfield either.
Yeah, and they were active in the portal. Not only did they bring in Brock Vandergriff, they brought in Bo Allen, who used to be at Kentucky. Then he transferred to Tarleton. Then he transferred to Georgia Southern. Now he's back in Kentucky, to quote Chris Farley in Wayne's World, right? He goes to Tarleton. He jumps over to Statesboro, Georgia, back to Lexington. He also got Gavin Wimsatt, who started a shit ton of games at Rutgers.
That's a great get. Yeah, that is a great insurance policy on Brock Vandergriff.
So they're winning the portal once again. You Chip Traynum coming in from Ohio State / Arizona State. This is a guy that had moments. I remember in Ohio State games. So I was like, he's pretty good. Jamori Macklin from North Texas. He lit it up at North Texas. Raymond Cottrell coming in from A&M. A&M's always got guys. Jalen Farmer from the Florida Gators coming in, as well as Gerald Mincy on the offensive line. I believe Farmer started some games at Florida there.
Hey, I don't want to be Mr. TMZ, but it is nice to bring in some, high-level Power 5 guys from Georgia, Ohio State, Florida, A&M, Tennessee, A&M. Yeah.
So the question is how fast can you make that go? Does continuity matter still, Patty C? I think it does some, right?
I think so. Listening to other people talk about it, it sounds like they did have problems jumping off sides a little bit last year. The line was not super cohesive. So I do think experience matters there, and maybe they will be able to bond in short order. But if they're not, then it could spell trouble.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball, because that's Stoops's forte as a Stoops, any Stoops. But before we do that, I want to tell you that the college football experience Kentucky Wildcats previews brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8 is now live for the NBA Finals. Create entries with up to 8 picks, and the Underdog will automatically double flex entries, so you can miss up to 2 picks and still win your entry. With more picks to make and extra ways to win, the excitement is higher than ever. And the best part is you can win up to 325 times the amount of money you enter. Yes, you can now use specials and boost on all flex entries as well. Don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. Sign up. And when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Yes, they do have college football. Yes, they do have college basketball. So what are you doing? UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. All right, we are back talking Wildcat football. And how about this defense? 53rd in the nation in scoring defense in 2023, giving up just 25.8 points per game. That was 8th best in the SEC. 17th in the nation in yards given up, 353.5 yards per game. That was 7th best in the SEC. And that's impressive right there. That there's 7 teams in the top 17, essentially.
Yeah.
They were 33rd in pass defense, 240.5 yards per game, charting at 11th best in the SEC, and 14th in the nation in rush defense, only giving up 113.1 yards per game, 3rd best in the SEC.
It's funny, being one of the better defenses and one of the worst offenses in the country puts them right in the middle, 8th place in the SEC standings on both. They're the typical SEC team, and I guess even though the SEC has started to spread the ball and throw it around the field, it sounds like they're still a pretty defensively based conference.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. Well, I wonder if the 8 conference games helps dilute that number.
Yeah,
you got most of college football, the Pac-12, Big 12, and Big 10 play in 9 conference games. I wonder if that, and in some instances, not only 9 conference games, like USC and UCLA, I feel like would play like 11 Power 5s. So I wish we could see everyone play the same amount of Power 5s, because the numbers can get very skewed. Now, I'm not saying that maybe the SEC defenses are that good. I'm just saying it's really hard to break down, when you have that many,
if you have a 700-yard output against Austin P,
yes,
and then you play
some
South
teams
Carolina.
don't even play FCSs. That's another level of diluting it to me. It's like you're throwing in the stats from you playing Alabama State when half the country's not playing an FCS. So or not half, but a fourth of the country is not playing an FCS. So either way, though, impressive defensive numbers, and Stoops, that's what Stoops do. All right. Look, the defense returns 9 starters. So there's a lot of optimism behind this defense being legit, specifically, I can't talk. The defensive line, Octavious Oxendine. I wonder if that's any relation to the former Virginia Tech great running back, Ken Oxendine. He's at the DN spot. Keeshawn Silver at the defensive tackle spot is back. Deone Walker at the other defensive tackle spot is back. Same with JJ Weaver. So the whole D line is back. You got one linebacker drafted in the NFL, but the other 2 are back. De'Eric Jackson and Alex Afari. And then your secondary returns 3 of 4. Maxwell Harrison at the corner spot. And the safety, Zion Childress and Jordan Lovett. Patty, see this defense going to be pretty fire.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of returning starters. And then you add in the Georgia transfer. I don't know if we touched on him.
We're about to. We're about to, because in the portal, they added Jason Dumas-Johnson from Georgia, as well as defensive back Christian Story from Alabama. They also got punter Aiden Laros from UT Martin. I'll give you a quarterback, you give me the punter. All right. That's what they did essentially, but go Skyhawks. But let's talk. They did lose a little depth. Keaton Wade, Destin Wade and Keaton Wade, both brothers, leave for Colorado. Defensive lineman Jamaris Dinkins to Purdue. Linebacker Luke Fulton to Kent State. Martez Thrower to Georgia State at the linebacker spot. Defensive back Jordan Robinson to Cincinnati. Defensive back Jeremiah Anglin to Pitt. Also defensive back Diamond Green's in the portal, as well as Elijah Reed heading off to the Zips of Akron, as well as Jalen Geiger to Tulane. I mean, maybe you can talk me into Anglin. Pitt always has good DBs, so maybe that's a loss. Maybe Wade, I feel like a little bit, but okay. Yeah, defense should be fire, right?
I mean, with the returning starters, 9 returning starters, and then Jason Dumas-Johnson was one of the leading tacklers on Georgia a couple years back. Spectacular player. Prince George's County guy, which anyone from Hyattsville, Maryland, is someone you should fear in general. I think the defense is going to be stout, and it's going to keep them in a lot of games, and it's going to be they're going to give the offense opportunities to win games. We're going to see if the offense takes advantage.
Yeah. I think this is definitely going to be the strong suit of the team yet again. They do bring back their kicker and punter as well. Alex Rayner and Wilson Berry. And obviously they add Laros, who maybe can challenge for the job, but special teams looks to be in decent shape too.
You all-American son of a bitch.
But all right, well, let's take a look at this. The win total set at 6.5 wins, Patty. See, wait a second. They win 8-9 games every year, 7, 8, 9 games, plus 10,000 to win the SEC championship. And I couldn't find odds to make the 12-team playoff. Look, that was just me going over to DK. They were not available. I do believe they will be at some point. And if not at DK, maybe they're elsewhere. I didn't do a deep dive on that, but I would imagine, because they're putting together winning seasons, those odds have to be out there. It's just I don't see them right now
for college football playoffs.
Yes,
I mean they're probably out there, but
just not on DK right now.
That? Yeah.
And plus 30,000 to win the national championship. We're gonna go game by game on the schedule. But before I do that, I want to tell you the college football experience is brought to you by Rhythm. If you're betting on NBA player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm gives you a menu of best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easy to go through and find the best props to put your money on in a matter of seconds. Rhythm's predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning their algorithm to give you the best shot at winning. Rhythm pairs its predictions with player prop graphs to help you feel even more confident in your picks, which you can make, wherever you normally place your bets or DFS picks. From superstars to bench players, Rhythm finds the best player prop lines, all backed by AI data without you needing to endlessly scroll through some sports book. So what are you doing, folks? Hop over to Rhythm, claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. Once again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier than before. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer, the closer you get to the first pitch, essentially, with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So what are you doing, folks? Hop on over there and take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that redeeming code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Of course, they have college football games too. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeeming code CFBX for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we are back on the college football experience, Kentucky Wildcat style. And Patty C. So look, before you dive into the schedule, would you lean over?
Yeah, that's my gut. That's my first reaction to it. I do think that there are some challenging games here, and there's some critical games for them to be able to, that are going to make or break that over under, obviously, as there are on every team schedule. But my lean is slightly over.
Well, the juice tells a different story. The over is at plus 115. So if you think Kentucky's a 7-win team, the under's at minus 135. So Vegas is basically projecting a 6-6 season from the Kentucky Wildcats.
Well, that is probably their floor. I think, Mark Stoops has proven with like 8 straight bowl seasons, like we mentioned, that bowling is almost definitely going to happen for them. And I think this schedule allows for that too.
But the win total doesn't matter on the bowl win.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
season,
saying. Yeah, I'm just saying. 6 seems to be his floor of late for almost a decade. But that was
now. SEC East. Now you have a brand new SEC, and
the cupcake schedule remains.
Let's jump into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So wait, did I fuck this up? I think I did.
Cupcake non-conference schedule, I should say.
I think I did fuck this up. Let's take a look at this. I don't have that. I fucked up that schedule. But week 1, they are home to Southern Miss. Right? He's 1-1 against Southern Miss. Watch out for them Golden Eagles. All right. And I'm sorry I don't have the graphic from this, but it's in Lexington, August 31st. That's a thing that I want to highlight about the schedule. Their first 4 games are at home. They are home to South Carolina, the Gamecocks. Here's what's interesting to me. You look, I think Beamer's gotten them 2 times in a row. So Beamer, I think, is undefeated against Kentucky. Let me just make sure I'm accurate at this. He's had South Carolina's number, just not Shane Beamer's number. Yeah, Kentucky's won. So with Shane Beamer, he is 2-0 against Kentucky. So what are you doing here? I
wonder what that is that gives South Carolina and Beamer an edge. I do think Beamer is probably a little bit more clever of a coach than, I can't say that for certain. I think, that's a very broad statement, but Beamer finds ways to win games that he probably shouldn't. And maybe that's, something about his coaching style. And Kentucky more or less loses the game they're supposed to lose, wins the games they're supposed to win. To their credit, wins a lot of the 50-50 games. And I think that's what makes Mark Stoops a good coach. But in an evenly talent-wise game, maybe Shane Beamer's got a trick or two up his sleeve that allows him to get the better of Stoops.
But they lose Spencer Rattler. I know they're bringing in the kid from Auburn that played some games there, Robbie Ashford. But I lean Kentucky in Lexington. I know Stoops is 0-2 against Beamer, but I'm still taking Kentucky to be 2-0. You?
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're the better team this year.
All right, and then game 3, the Georgia Bulldogs come to Lexington. Have fun with that. Brock Vandergriff gets a chance to take down Carson Beck. Couldn't this be the one? Last time was a 16-6 game.
Yeah,
maybe.
This is the type of game that You think back to Clemson a couple years back when they were in a defensive battle. If for some reason Georgia isn't sharp, now Georgia starts with Clemson and then Tennessee Tech, so it's essentially a bye game, or even better than a bye, a little tune-up for Kentucky. Get some things worked out on the field against an opponent they're certainly going to destroy. I think it would be a very surprising thing for Kentucky to even be in this game in the second half, but certainly to win it. But maybe if Vandergriff
I think they'll be in it, because the past 2 games, and that was with Georgia's dominance, the past 2 in Lexington, they've been in. It's in Athens where they get completely fucked up. Yeah. So in Lexington, I think they'll be in it, but I still think they lose.
Okay. Yeah, most likely. I mean, almost certainly. So
then the Ohio Bobcats come to town. Man, you want to talk about a team that has lost everybody? I'm expecting maybe the only team that might have a worse season based on their win total last year is New Mexico State. But I think Ohio's going to be awful. They lost everybody. I think they're going to be awful this year.
Well, they were pretty. I mean, how many 10-win seasons in a row? Is it 2 that they've had up there?
Well, they had a bad year. The year that Solich had the heart problems in August, and Albin walked in. It's tough to ask your head coach on the fly, but
last year recovered, found themselves in the MAC championship game. So that team should be a threat. But if
they lost everybody, they lost both quarterbacks, both starting quarterbacks. Because Rourke got injured. Rourke said starting at Indiana, the other backups backing up in Berkeley now at Cal. They lost their whole D line is gone. Some to A&M, some to Colorado. Those teams don't have the depth. When you lose those that many key players, I find it really hard to be. They could make a bowl maybe.
Tough. Yeah, it's tough because I think of another team in the state of Ohio where Kentucky loves to recruit, by the way. But obviously, me being a Cincy Bearcats fan, my assumption is that the culture and the depth will carry them through tough times where they lose players. But it did not, in the transition to Satterfield, and so and that I think you're right. I think that's what you have to.
Well, it's even harder at the mid-majors because you don't have the depth. You know what I mean? So
what looks like will happen on paper ends up happening. So if that's the case with Ohio, then Kentucky should slap them.
I got them 3-1. I actually think the Southern Miss game is trickier than the South Carolina game. Southern Miss beat them in Lexington, I believe, last time they played. And like I said, he's 1-1. Stoops is against Southern Miss in his tenure.
I don't think Kentucky can be asleep for either of those games. Fortunately, they're the first 2 games of the season, so I'm sure they'll have, both teams will have Kentucky's full attention.
So 3-1, we both have them 3-1. Then September 28th, they're heading to Oxford, Mississippi. He is winless against Ole Miss. I believe he's 0-2 or 0-3. I got Ole Miss winning this one. If it was in Lexington, I could buy into that, but I got you moving to 3-2.
I still feel like the talent and the speed on Ole Miss is too much for Kentucky to handle, and they start pulling away.
When I told he's been bad against the SEC West, especially not even with Mississippi State, he has a losing record, but 5 of his 7 wins ever against the SEC West were
against those much faster teams. They kind of can't compete.
Then after that, you come home and you got Vanderbilt. Now Vanderbilt beat them in Lexington 2 years ago. But I think you're going to take, I don't know, Diego Pissing Pavia, Jerry Kill coming into Vanderbilt. They might be a little chippier this year, but I favor Kentucky here.
Yeah. I mean, you're a believer in Vanderbilt, and maybe you're onto something there. I think getting the bye before Vanderbilt is questionable scheduling, although that's probably something the SEC handed them, as opposed to Kentucky arranging for themselves. But either way, the bye before the Vanderbilt game and that being at home almost makes that a guaranteed win in my book.
Yeah, I don't know about guaranteed. Like I said, Vanderbilt won the last time they played there. But
yeah, maybe gotta consider that.
I do think they'll be favored. So I'll give it to Kentucky.
Vandy 0-8 in SEC play last year. So
yes, but they didn't have Jerry Kill, who 1-0 in SEC play last year against Auburn. Yeah. And Diego, he has the starting quarterback too, and the OC.
They're not going to be scared.
So, yeah.
Vandy's got a lot more mojo just based on that.
Former state wrestling champion in New Mexico, Diego Pisipavia. Let's go. All right. Then after that, this is to me the most pivotal game on the schedule for their win total.
And probably one that the fans would love to get most.
They are heading to Gainesville, Florida to take on these Gators, where might I add, they have won 2 of 3 in Gainesville. 2 of 3 in Gainesville. And by the way, Kentucky's won 3 straight. 2 of those 3 by double digits.
Oh man, to start owning Florida in a rivalry like you mentioned before that they had lost 30 in a row in, that's a great story. That alone is Stoops' legacy there.
Well, even crazier is Napier could be fired here, and if that happens, then I fully expect this to be a win. But if Napier's not, or if Napier's there, then to me it's a game. You know what I mean? But fuck it, I'm taking Florida, man. I'm sorry, I'm taking Kentucky. I think Kentucky's better than Florida right now.
I'm inclined to agree with you there. I mean, so we have them kind of blistering hot out of the gates here. I'm guessing 4-2 through this halfway point of the season.
Yeah, and then comes in Hughes Strip Club freeze.
Or actually, sorry, that's 5-2. 5-2 at that point. Yeah,
Southern Miss, South Carolina, Ohio, Vanderbilt, Florida. That's 5, right? So now comes Strip Club freeze, and this is that. Look, Kentucky's good to lose like 1 or 2 games a year that you don't think.
Yeah.
Strip Club freeze and Auburn get them here, especially if they beat Florida, because that's one of those. The Florida one's a rivalry game. They have a Wikipedia page for it and everything, right? For the rivalry. So it's a letdown spot for Kentucky. I think Auburn gets them in Commonwealth Stadium there.
Yeah, certainly, between South Carolina, Florida, and Auburn, 3 games that are close to, 50-50 games where we give a slight edge to Kentucky, maybe in all 3 of them. They'll probably lose at least one of those. So by this point in the season, I do expect them to have 3 losses.
So that puts us at what is that? It puts us at 5 and
3. Yep.
I got them 5-4 because they head to Knoxville the next week, and they have been awful against Tennessee. Just 2-9 against Tennessee in Stoops' tenure. Not winning this one. I will take Tennessee. You?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes.
So that puts us at 5-4, and then the Racers of Murray State come to town.
Another questionably positioned bye week prior to the Murray State game. I mean, what are you doing?
I mean, you just gotta love the SEC loading up these FCSs.
Mid-November.
In mid-November, Murray State, the Racers were 2-9 last season in the FCS, 1-7. They've lost 7 straight to end the season. And when I say you want to know some of these losses, that their only wins were against Presbyterian, and they upset Indiana State 30-28 back on September 30th. But you want to talk about a team that got their ass kicked in almost every game. 31 in conference. I'm not even going to bring up the 56-0 loss to Louisville or the 21-point loss to Middle Tennessee, but in conference, their last 7 games, 31-point loss to South Dakota, 21-point loss to Southern Illinois. Now only a 4-point loss to Missouri State, who is jumping up to the FBS next year. Then a 32-point loss to North Dakota State, a 14-point loss to North Dakota, a 37-point loss to Illinois State.
They're going to get routed by Kentucky.
I mean, this is a ridiculous game on the schedule to me.
Murray State's in the state of Kentucky.
It is.
How many other FCS schools are in Kentucky? You got
Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean that is the better of the 2. But Stoops is pretty much, unabashedly going to make the schedule as easy as possible for himself.
Well, I know, and he was one of the ones that was very outspoken on keeping the 8-game conference schedule. Wisely.
I mean, he knows that at the end of the day, it's the number of bowl games or the number of games you win. And wasn't that built into his contract that if you get to 6 wins, you get a bonus? He is, a slight conflict of interest there, like an actual monetary contract that says the more games I win, the more money I get.
Good round, you're celebrating with your appetite. Bad round, you're using your appetite to forget about the round. I'll tell you something about appetite. It's a real fucking great thing to have.
All right. Well, look. So we got to beat Murray State. That puts them bowl eligible. We got them at 6 wins. And now they head to Austin, Texas, take on the Longhorns. They're gonna get their ass whooped in this. And I got them at 6-5 after this. You?
Yeah, 6-5.
And then
do they pose any threat to the likes of Texas? Texas at this point in the season, I didn't check who they had before them.
This is a look ahead spot because Texas has A&M after
on deck. Yeah.
And
they're coming off a road trip to Arkansas, so I'm sure they're going to get Arkansas's best shot. So, I mean, Kentucky is probably one of the sleepier games on Texas's schedule. If it was in Kentucky, then maybe. If it was in Lexington, but the fact that they got to go to Austin, Texas can probably be asleep at the wheel for the first half and still, get it done in the second half.
And then the season finale, which actually depends for the win total, they are hosting the Louisville Cardinals. Personally, I thought Louisville should have won the game last year. I thought they played better than Kentucky.
They did.
But they blew it, and like Louisville's done in many opportunities over the past 7-8 years. I'm with Jeff Brom on this one. I think revenge is going to happen. I got Louisville beating Kentucky in Commonwealth Stadium. You?
You are up on Brom, and obviously for good reason. I am up on Brom too. I question, with new quarterback leadership there, whether they're going to.
I think they're much better at quarterback this year, providing he stays healthy than last year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I tend to agree with you. I think the fact that it's in Lexington and the history of Kentucky suggests that they're going to get it done here some way or another. So I'm going to lean Kentucky, and therefore I'm going to lean with the over at 7 wins. But this is a coin flip game, and Louisville did close the gap considerably last year to the point where they probably should have won that game.
Yeah, I just think Louisville they have this one circled. I think it means a lot to Brom. Obviously, it means a lot for anyone in this game, but I just think they have this one circled for the way that they lost last year. I think this is why they're going to come up and get them.
Well, this game starts to become an interesting game on a national level. If they both continue with their winning ways, especially if Louisville is in contention for a playoff spot, which last year they would have certainly been in that range. I think they would have gotten in Louisville last year.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the type of game that could be knocking Louisville out of the playoff and maybe giving Kentucky the boost to get into the playoff. So this is a fun game moving forward.
100%. And, it's interesting looking at, so do you think this schedule is a lot harder? So what do they get this compared to last year when they would have they still got Vanderbilt on the schedule, which I think you're happy about. But you got South Carolina, which most teams want Vanderbilt and South Carolina and Mississippi State. You don't have Mississippi State, but Vanderbilt and South Carolina are on there. And Arkansas, I'd say, is the fourth one. Arkansas is not on there. So you got 2 of the bottom 4 that is projected. But you also get Auburn and Texas.
Yeah.
Instead of Missouri and
that's it.
Yeah.
Mississippi State.
Yeah.
I think you certainly, and luck of the draw, it's going to rotate. Missouri and Mississippi State, were both decent. Or I guess Mississippi State wasn't great last year, but Missouri was excellent. So, I think obviously Texas and Auburn, generally speaking, are harder, I think it's going to get slightly harder for them. I think mixing in with the SEC West. I mean, the SEC West had 7 amazing teams recently, and then you throw in Texas and Oklahoma. It's like, okay, you're not in the SEC East anymore, but I think it's going to get a little harder.
So you're on the over. I'm on the under. I think it's a 6-6 season. Vegas agrees with me, saying the juice 6-6. Well, what's that?
I'm not exactly this is not a surefire bet. I could easily see them losing a couple of those games. I could see them missing a bowl, but I'd say the bowling seems close to the floor. I mean, Stoops, if anything, is nothing but consistent. So it's going to be in that 6-7 win range at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think 5, 6, 7. I think there's no way they're a 4-win team. I think there's no way there's an 8-win team.
I think they could get to 8, but that would be the ceiling.
8 would be what? Southern Miss, South Carolina, Ohio, Vandy. That's 4. Florida 5. They get Auburn 6. Murray State 7. Louisville 8. I guess theoretically.
I mean, they would have to win every game, every 50-50, because Georgia, at Ole Miss, at Tennessee, and at Texas all seem like lost. Yeah, I'd say 7 is probably actually more closer to their ceiling there.
Yeah. Look, we're gonna have it. You're gonna have you covered for all of this action, folks. As you know, every single game we handicap here on the college football experience. We've been doing this shit for a long time, and we're breaking down every single team in the land, all 134 teams with the podcast. Check it all out. Go to youtube.com/the college experience. Hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if you're a Murray State fan, all right, I host the FCS college football experience. Check that out. And don't forget the college basketball experience. Mark Pope, new sheriff in town in Lexington. Get this Calipari bullshit out of here. This Tyson chicken money, get the fuck out of here. All right. So check out the college basketball experience and the college baseball experience. Congrats to Kentucky getting winning their first time they host a super regional. And now they're heading to Omaha. Great game against Oregon State last night. Shout out to Big Blue Nation. They got to be enjoying that one. I know someone in the chat was saying they're going to Omaha. Let's go. Kentucky fans, they do college sports right. All right. So check all that stuff out. Give Patty C a follow on Twitter at PattyC831. I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. The college football experience and college basketball experience and college baseball experience merge to one account on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. Also, youtube.com/the college experience. Check out that. Check out the Stadium Heads podcast. We gave Kentucky some love. Stadium Heads podcast is myself and college football campus tour, aka Michael Barker, who just travels around the country going to thousands of college football games.
Just living everyone's dream and being a hero in general.
Yes. Check out the Stadium Heads podcast. We talk about the history of college sports, essentially college football, and why it's the greatest thing ever. And, evaluate all these stadiums in their history. So check it out. And also, look, I see the chat talking about it. Shout out to Helms22. Says, thanks for the Argonauts moneyline play. Yes, there we go. Check out that CFL gambling podcast and UFL gambling podcast, all part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Folks, until next time, this is the college football experience, Kentucky Wildcat style. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot.